Welcome to chapter 23 of the book of Joshua. I believe the last chapter I mentioned or said that this would be the last chapter, but it's not. There's one more after this. But it is a summation again of the things that Joshua is going to relate to the sons of Israel, and has about 6 lessons, I believe, that we can learn from this chapter. The Old Testament, to so many people, is just something in the past. It doesn't relate to people of the New Testament or the people of today, and it's not taught in many churches, and some even go as far as to say it doesn't matter, it's not valid any longer. And there's so many things in the Old Testament that we can learn from. To bypass it or to ignore it, one does it at their own peril. It begins, "And it came to pass after many days, after the Lord God rested Israel from all their enemies round about," that is in the land of Canaan, "and Jesus was older, presbyteros, being advanced in days, that Jesus called together all the sons of Israel, and their gerousian," the geriatrics comes from that word, "council of elders, and their archontas, an archon, a ruler, and their dikastas, their magistrates, judges, and their scribes, the writers of the law, more or less, and said to them, I grow old and advanced in days. And you have seen all the things as much as the Lord our God did to all these nations from in front of you," that is, the lands and peoples of the land of Canaan. "For the Lord our God, he is the one waging war for you. Behold, whatsoever I said, I cast to you nations, the ones being left behind to you. These lands will be for lots to your tribes." Now, I'm not exactly sure. Joshua or God is saying, "Behold, whatsoever I said, I cast to you nations, the ones being left behind to you. These nations will be for lots to your tribes. All the nations from the Jordan I will utterly destroy," so this is God, "and from the great sea, the Mediterranean, you shall define the bounds by the descent of the sun," where it goes down over the Mediterranean. "And the Lord your God," now it goes back to Joshua, "he shall utterly destroy them from in front of you, and shall utterly destroy them from your face. And you shall inherit their land, as the Lord your God spoke to you." Now, this is the beginning of the sons of Israel going into the land of Canaan, which would become Israel and Judah, and then everything sort of went south from there, went bad, until they were taken to Babylon and then later spread out throughout the world after the Romans dispersed them. But in 1948, they came back, and now they are a country again. But they've come in, but they haven't really eliminated the peoples there that God originally had them to eliminate. The land of Israel is still occupied in the Gaza Strip by the successors of the Philistines called Palestinians, and the Arabs in the West Bank, where Bethlehem is located, in Hebron, these places. And then up north, the land stops at Lebanon. The border of Israel stops at Lebanon, but in the Bible it goes up to the entrance of Hamath, which is up into Syria. And these areas have not been taken. And then Jordan, on the eastern side of the Jordan River, the tribal areas of the 3 tribes, Reuben, Manasseh, and Gad, they are all in that land, is all under the Jordanian rule, and the Temple Mount also under Jordanian rule, the Temple Mount in Israel. So it's a little different today. They haven't done as much as they did thousands of years ago. And it continues. He says, grow strong. Now here's where where we receive instructions through the instructions to the sons of Israel via Jesus, Joshua, and I think we can take these instructions today. Grow strong, then exceedingly to guard and to do all things being written in the scroll of the law of Moses. And that is basically what we're reading. The Bible, the scroll of the law of Moses was apparently the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth books that the law was given for the Jews, and that's all that they had at this time because Joshua was the next book. But we have the scroll of the whole Bible and guarding to do all the things that are in it. And as I mentioned, if you're wanting to know what God has for you to do or not to do, get a 3-ring binder and draw a vertical line down the center, and on the left put to do and the right not to do, and go through the 4 Gospels. Write down when he says to do something or not to do it in the other column. And then if it's a repeat, then put a check mark. And at the end of it, you'll have all the things to do and not to do, with the more important things with more check marks. So then he says, by reading the law, or us, that you should not turn aside from him to the right or to the left. And the turning aside is a possibility. Many people turn aside from God. I turned aside for 13 years, but I came back. Many people don't come back. It is possible to turn away from God. It's not once saved, always saved, which is the word saved doesn't appear in the Apostolic Bible. It's deliver. It's a verb, and it's a action verb that's happening in past tense, future tense, present tense, and so forth. So we shouldn't turn aside from him to the right or to the left. And Jesus is the way, as we mentioned in the last chapter. You should not enter unto these nations being left with you. Now, he doesn't mean traveling there, but entering to have any type of social or political relations with these people. And the names of their gods you shall not name among you. So we are not, now we as Christians are told to go throughout the world. And so it's different in the New Testament than it is here. These are not, people are not to go there and to join up with them, but they did. And we are to go to these nations and tell them about Jesus, but not to join up with their gods, of course. And you shall not swear by an oath, nor should, so swearing by an oath, Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Nor should you serve, nor should you do obeisance to them and these gods. Do obeisance is getting down on your face on the ground before a higher authority, which in this case, if you did that to these idols, then you would be doing obeisance. But to the Lord your God you shall cleave. And cleaving to God, as we mentioned before, is something that we want to do. It's something that to me is a matter of what would you call it? Existence. I've used, I believe, before the example of a man that was in a boat out in the ocean, and the boat sank, and he's grabs a hold of a life raft, and he's cleaving to this, or a buoy. He's cleaving to it, holding on it for dear life. So then, let's say a couple of days he's waiting, hoping for a boat or something to come by, but it's a nice day. So he decides he's going to take a little swim away from the buoy, get some exercise, and he does that. Comes back and grabs the buoy, and he does it the next day. Goes out a little further until finally he can't see the buoy, and he has no longer cleaved to the buoy, and he drowns. And we also are to cleave to the buoy, which to me is God's word. And the Lord shall utterly destroy them, these nations, from your face, great and strong nations. And to you no one withstood before you until this day. So they were successful in their occupation of the land of Canaan, pretty much. One man of you pursued 1,000. For the Lord our God, this one wages war for you, just as he spoke to you. And I believe God wages war for us, protects us, sends his angels to protect us. And I've so many times today, I just got out of my car and this guy goes whizzing by on some kind of a contraption, like I don't exactly know what it was, like a moped, but it was really far to the ground. And if I would have stepped back a little bit further, this guy would have ran right into me with this gizmo that he was riding, had a motor on it, but I'm not sure if it was running, but it would have done a lot of damage. And so God wages war and protects us, just as he spoke to you. So I believe he wages war with our enemies, and a lot of times we don't see how he does that. I had a friend that called up, and she was having problems with a neighbor down the street who was on drugs and would get out in the middle of the street and yell and scream and do all sorts of things and confront her. And she was scared of him and everything. So I said a prayer, the Lord would protect her. And a couple of days later, she calls me up and she said, "You're not going to believe what happened." And I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, him and another man went out and they broke into a garage, stole something with a can of gasoline, crashed a car, and then they crashed the car and the gasoline caught on fire, and they were both burned almost beyond recognition." God wages war for us in ways we really don't know. But guard exceedingly. Here's the next one: is the guard. Guard exceedingly your lives, to love the Lord your God. And to guard, we certainly need to guard, because there's a lot of things that we are coming against us to guard from. And but it says, you guard, but guard exceedingly your lives. And the things that come against us in the New Testament we're told, are the devil, the world, and the flesh. And the devil accusing the brethren, it says, and doing his nefarious deeds to ruin our lives or our day, not our lives maybe, but our day, things going on that he causes these things maybe to happen. The world, we get involved in the world and sports and politics, and making money, all sorts of things of the world that will pull us away, that we need to guard from. And the flesh, which being a male or female would be different, fleshly desires, and pretty obvious for what it would be for each one of us, because we know what the flesh would do that would harm us. And so we need to guard these things. For if you should turn away and shall proceed to leave behind these nations with you, and you should make connections by marriage with them and mix together with them, and they with you. And that's, now so we can take that in consideration today. If you're a Christian, you're not to make a connection of marriage with the non-believer. If you do, and you have done that, it's not the end of the world, but it's going to make things difficult. Praying, hopefully, that the spouse, the non-believer, would become a believer is something that many people pray for, because they're going through that. They fall in love with somebody, and the love and the feelings take over of whether what they should guard against, marrying a non-believer, and they have to deal with that for many years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Sometimes the people the spouse will change. Sometimes, of course, both of them, neither one of them can be believers, and both of them can come together to a knowledge of Christ. And there's all types of scenarios. And another would be a person that I know. She lived with this man who was a non-believer until she died. And he never did believe. So what happens if you do? With knowledge know that in no way shall the Lord your God proceed to utterly destroy these nations from your face. So if you join into the enemy and open yourself up to a non-believer and all the things, then you're in a precarious place and state. And they will be to you for snares, and that's for certain. You have a non-believing spouse, it's going to be a snare in many ways. I want you to do things that you shouldn't be doing. Or if you took a job with somebody that was a non-believer, well, that's a little bit different. You'd be working for somebody, and it doesn't really matter what they believe because it's just a job. But it could be a problem if you are a strong believer and the other person is a believer in another God, and that could be a snare to you. So it's best not to be careful where you join up with, who you join up with, as far as in many ways. It could be in politics, where people will want you to get away from your beliefs and join their belief, which of an unbeliever. And for obstacles, things that will be put in your way that you'll fall over them. The other person would think, well, this is just really great. We shouldn't go anywhere on Sunday. We should be doing something, washing the car or whatever, or Saturday, whatever day, seventh day rest, putting an obstacle in front that you wouldn't be able to, or something way you wouldn't be able to go to church, or you wouldn't be able to open the Bible, wouldn't turn off the internet, you couldn't read go to the videos here, so forth. And for nails in your heels, and that's something that hurts. And you can belong to a non-believer now, and then something can happen, and it can hurt and instantaneously, and you don't have any relief. You are basically being damaged by the spouse, by different ways, psychological or physical. And for arrows in your eyes. And so there would be something that would cause what you were looking at and seeing to be thwarted and not be righteous or holy because of somebody putting things in front of you that shouldn't be there. Until whenever you should destroy them from this good land. Now, the nations, not the spouse, which the Lord your God gave to you. Now, the good land would be living a life, I believe, husband and wife with the Lord is their guide and one that protects them and so forth. But I run today, and Joshua, Jesus, says this, I run today the way as also all the ones upon the earth. That means he's going to die. And you shall know in your whole heart and in your whole soul that is in your thought process, your heart and your soul, your life, and the things that happen around you, that one word failed not from all of the good words of which the Lord our God spoke concerning you. All the things being related to us, he dissented not from them one word. And I believe God allows us to go into a place the close to him, the better we are. And things will happen better for us. And if we separate from God, and not only mean separate completely, but walk away from these things, then we are more vulnerable. And it will be in which manner all the good things, all the good things come unto you, which the Lord your God spoke unto you, so the Lord will bring upon you all the bad things until he should utterly destroy you from this good land which the Lord your God gave to you. And this warning they should have taken, which they didn't. And it was taken away from them more than once, Nebuchadnezzar and the Romans. Why? In your violating the covenant of the Lord your God. They violated the covenant of Moses. They went with kings. They instituted kings rather than a theocracy. And then later, the new covenant with Jesus Christ, and by crucifying him. So the covenant of the Lord they've broken more than once, which he gave charge to you. And going, you shall serve other gods, and you shall do obeisance to them. The Lord shall be provoked in anger, in rage with you. So if bad things happen to you when you walk away from God, which they happen to me big time, but fortunately, I realized that after asking God to leave me alone, I wanted to do what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, when I wanted to do it. And after seeing all the things that happened to me, and it could have been the rage of God, I came back to him. Others don't. And you shall perish quickly from the good land which the Lord gave to you. And the walking away from God can end up in perishing and being found in the gates of Hades. Chapter 24, History of Israel's Sojourn. The last chapter, we're going to go through a summary of all the places that they went and so forth. Hope you'll join us in the last chapter, the book of Joshua. Until then, God bless.